ABC. It's Greeno. Saw the thread kind of going around, started by Jeffrecordman, about 90s music, and just thought I'd jump in. In the 90s, I wasn't collecting too much vinyl. It was, it was the height of the CD era, I guess you could say, and I mean, I definitely bought my share of CDs. But I do have some vinyl that I've picked up since then, since the 90s. But thought I'd show the stuff that I was into back then and that I really like. And probably it's about half and half vinyl, half CDs. And go from there, I guess. I get started with just pick this up, reissue. And everybody knows Smashing Pumpkins, but I thought I would show this because this is Gish. This is definitely my favorite, Smashing Pumpkins, and actually kind of where Smashing Pumpkins ended for me. Siamese Dream and what was the other one? Melancholy or something. Just wasn't too much into. But this album, when I first heard or first saw the videos, the first couple, man, just blew me away. It's great stuff. Early 90s, you know, when alternative was kind of getting rolling. And actually doing this, going back, it's like albums I thought of as 90s albums, a lot that I wanted to pull out and show were actually like 89. So I went ahead and pulled them out. But a lot of my favorite albums from that era ended up, for some reason, being around, 1989 they were released. So, like for example, another reissue, Nirvana, Bleach, and just I remember when this come out, a friend had a copy on cassette, and for probably all of '89 going into early 90s, I had no idea what this album cover looked like. I had no idea what the band looked like. All I knew was the band's name was Nirvana and the album was called Bleach. Didn't even have song titles. And just completely wore that cassette out. And then finally found it on CD. And I remember having to special order Nevermind when it first came out because nobody had it, for the first month. It seemed like, as Teen Spirit started building up on MTV. And actually, I saw Nirvana at the old 930 in downtown DC about a month to the day before Nevermind came out, and it's an incredible show. Next, also from '89 is Mother Love Bone, Shine. And I know, Cobain's death in the 90s was a big deal, but I kind of think the death of Andrew Wood was a bigger deal. To me, it's like everything kind of changed after he died, and of course, we ended up with Pearl Jam and all that. But this band, when we were listening to this when it first came out, it was like, these guys are going to be huge. They were just fantastic. The next thing you know, he's dead. Next, also from '89, The Big F. And this is just a crazy great album. It's, I believe there's a couple guys from Berlin, the 80s band Berlin, ended up in this band. And in 1989, Elektra. And to be honest, it's one of those bands that I really like, and I kind of like the mystery about them, because this is just a fantastic album. And they did have another album and an EP, I think, after this that wasn't quite as good, but I haven't really dug deep into them because I don't want to spoil the mystery of them. It kind of adds to it for me, to be honest. But if you ever see this around, definitely check it out. I see the CD, around for cheap prices used all the time, or used to. Next, 9 Inch Nails, Pretty Hate Machine. their first album. This is also '89, I believe. And when this came out, this was like a kick to the head too, because you never kind of really heard anything like this. And this is like the only 9 Inch Nails that I kind of dig. I don't know why. I could never get into them after this album, but I completely love this album. Just an incredible album. It was very influential for the 90s. A lot of bands kind of picked this sound up. Marilyn Manson and all that stuff. And also from '89, and as far as I'm concerned, the best grunge album from that era. Mudhoney, self-titled. This is just a perfect album. It's just so garage and grunge and punk and rock. It's just incredible. I love this album. I remember finding this not long after first hearing Nirvana. And up to that point I was a total metalhead, as you can see by my videos. But this stuff definitely opened me up. About '89 is when I started opening up and checking out other things. And this was one of the albums, that caused me to do that. Next, also from '89, a band called Mind Over 4. This is their self-titled, and actually it's what I'm playing right now, listening to. And this is just an odd album, but it's so good. It's kind of heavy, kind of not. It's got some pretty cool lyrics, and I'm not sure how to explain it. There's another band I'll show here in a second that kind of fits in the mold of this band, but definitely worth checking out. And from, I think, 1990, the Buck Pets, just a cool alternative band, one of the early ones, I guess. And I guess their big hit was Pearls. Really dug this band. They had an album before this, it was okay, but this album is just great. The Puritans is the name of the album. Played the crap out of this in college. Next band, Paul, Death to Traitors. I think this is mid-90s or so, 95. And I'm not sure how to explain some of these bands. The 90s were so weird with, there was so much different stuff going on. But these guys they were a little heavy, they were a little rootsy, but just, fantastic stuff. They weren't quite alt country, they were way too heavy for that, but they had that leaning, I guess you could say. At least this album did. And speaking of one you can't really pin down as far as sound, Deke Dickerson and the Echo Phonics. When I was going through my alt country stage, which I'll kind of talk about here in a minute, came across this on CD, and I had it for years, still have it. I just found this about a year ago on vinyl, and just was ready to pass out when I pulled it out of the stack. I was like, holy crap, I never even knew it came out on vinyl. This is from '98, and it's kind of a retro thing, but kind of a sound unto itself. Just, you can look at the cover and kind of take or get an idea of what he's going for. But incredible stuff. Alright, another band on the kind of on the same wavelength as Mind Over 4 is Last Crack. This is Burning Time, their second full length. And the first one I like a little bit better, which I do have on CD, but I don't have on vinyl yet. Sinister Funkhouse, number 17. But this is still a very good album. These guys were from Minnesota, if I remember correctly. This was from 1991 on Roadrunner. And same kind of deal, they're a little heavy, but not real heavy. but just really cool lyrics and crazy time changes and just interesting music. In the 90s, I kind of went through two phases, major phases, musically, and it was alt country and finding a little label called Lookout with all these pop punk bands, and really kind of dug into that pretty hard. And Lookout's where like Green Day came from. They were on that label originally, but that label had a ton of other bands that were just as good as Green Day was at that time. And the first band I found on that label is still my favorite band from the label, from that whole scene, which is the Groovy Ghoulies, World Contact Day. This is like their second or third album, I believe. And this was like 95, 94, somewhere around in there. There's no date on the back. But you kind of get an idea. They're just, looking at the cover, they're just so much fun. Just think Ramones with like sci-fi movies and horror movies kind of thrown in. Just incredibly fun band. And they're still kind of going. Every once in a while they'll put something out. And it's mainly Kepi, which is the bass player, singer, and his wife, Roach, and whatever drummer they have at the time. I actually got to see these guys in DC in about 98, somewhere around in there, in a little bar, and they were fantastic. But opening for them, when we got there, we just went to see the Groovy Ghoulies. It was like me and a couple other friends, and opening that night, we walked in and was like talking to these people, and like, who's the opening band? He said it's these young girls on the same label. They just got signed and the album's getting ready to come out. It's like, okay, great, who's this? And they're all like, well, they're like 15, 16 years old, and we're like, this ought to be good. Well, let's just have a beer and hang out and wait on the Ghoulies. And these girls come out and just excuse me, completely kicked ass. They were amazing. And that band was the Donnas, American Teenage Rock and Roll Machine. And once again, just fun music and just so just innocent. For I don't know how else to kind of put it. I mean, these girls were just up there cranking it up and playing this pop punk stuff, and we all went out the next day and bought this album, and on CD, of course. I just found this, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And like I say, they were so young, and they're still going today. They ended up signing to Atlantic and off Atlantic, and they have their own thing going now. Their last album was really good. But if you want to just put something on that's fun, and I can guarantee it's just like the Ramones, man, it gets stuck in your head the more you listen to it. Both these albums are just fun albums from the 90s. Now it's kind of all pulled out 90s wise. I don't have a ton of other than metal, which I wasn't going to throw a bunch of metal in here, but I don't have a ton of stuff from the 90s. Like I say, I was buying mostly CDs, but nowadays when I do come across something I really like from the 90s on vinyl, of course I try and pick it up, but you don't see a lot of it. Okay, I pulled out some other things just CD wise I think I would kind of like to mention. And I guess I'm not doing a top 10. I'm kind of doing like Chris, Mr. C. Goodwin did, just showing some cool 90s stuff. So, hopefully you see something in here that you like, Jeff. So, first thing I'll show is on CD is the Nymphs. This was like 91 on DGC. This band had Ingrid Lore in it. And this band was like very sonic and cool lyrics. Really was into that band for a couple years. And another band that's kind of similar to them, sonic wise, but not quite as heavy, I guess, is I Love You. This is their first full length. And these guys have like a weird sound. I mean, the guitars are kind of distorted, but they're still clean at the same time. And this singer, or whoever wrote the lyrics in this band, wrote the weirdest lyrics. It's like he put words together that just sounded good, and usually they don't make sense, but they sound good. I don't know how else to explain it. Definitely worth checking out. That's their first full length. They had a live EP before that one, and their second full length was All of Us, and I believe this was their last release. And there are some videos on YouTube with these guys. They kind of had their own thing going. I really liked them back then. Alright, the other stuff I pulled out was, like I said, the 2 stages I went through was the pop punk, and then I got into alt country about 94 or 95 really hard, and I have a ton of that stuff on CD. I just pulled out some of my favorites from that era, and I forgot to show you that. Chris already showed it, so that's 2 people showing it. Jeff, if you've never heard this, track it down, get it on CD, vinyl, 8-track, whatever. This is a great album. It's worth hearing. It's the Jayhawks, Hollywood Town Hall. Great songwriter, and he's still going today. I was just watching some video of him on YouTube the other day, and the guy's amazing. It's Robbie Folks. This is Let's Kill Saturday Night, and this is just fantastic. He writes the greatest, the singer-songwriter stories, you know, that's what it's all about, kind of great lyrics. A band I got really into for their first 2 albums and really out of after that. They changed a little too much for me, but I love their first 2 albums, which is Wilco, and this is their first album, AM. This album's great. I saw these guys on this tour, or no, I'm sorry, on the second album. I saw them open for Sheryl Crow, and of course, you know, they came from Uncle Tupelo, who split into Wilco and Son Volt, basically. Son Volt's cool, but Wilco was amazing, I think, for 2 albums anyways. And their second album, Being There. This is when Jay joined the band, I believe. I don't think he was on the first album. And that guy was incredible. Shame he passed away a couple years back. After finding Wilco, started looking for more of those kind of bands, and the first one I came across was Whiskey Town. It's a Stranger's Almanac. This, of course, is where Ryan Adams came from. And this ranks up there, you know, with Wilco's debut, AM. It's just an incredible album. And after finding those, it exploded, finding more and more. And one of my very favorite is, and actually they have many albums, and a lot of them are good, but this one is fantastic, which is the Bottle Rockets, the Brooklyn side. And these guys are kind of the same deal, the singer-songwriter, but they're a little more twangy, honky-tonky, I guess you could kind of say. But man, they have incredible stories, and they have humor in their writing, the lyrics. Songs like Welfare Music, Gravity Fails, Radar Gun, $1,000 Car. Just great album. And then there's some other bands kind of popped up, like the B-Roys. And this is just kind of that alt country, but they just have a great sound. You know, they got that great cranked up tube amp, guitar sound, good singer. Another great singer-songwriter Todd Snider, and same deal, he has a lot of just great stories and put some humor in his writing, and I believe he's still going too. He's got a bunch of albums now. And kind of saved the best for last, my two favorite all-time alt country 90s albums are without a doubt these two. The first one is Gillian Welch, Revival. And this is two people basically, Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. And if any two people were meant to play together, it's these two people. It's very old time sounding. Just two people with acoustic, maybe a little bit of harmonica or something like that. But just incredible. Got to see her at a bluegrass festival. Went just because she was there. The two of them were there, and it was just mind blowing. And my next all-time favorite was Steve Earle. When he got into the more acoustic stuff, the 80s, he was more the electric and all that. Steve Earle's kind of like Neil Young to me. I like the acoustic-y, more mellow kind of stuff, and less of the full-on driving rockin' stuff. So this is Steve Earle and Del McCroy band. This is mainly bluegrass, and this is an unbelievable album. I can't even imagine how many times I've listened to this. Love this album. So that's kind of it for me. I just, it was real quick, pulled out stuff that I remember heavily listening to in the 90s, and if I did this video all over again, there'd be more stuff I'd pull out, and I'd forget to pull some of this. There was definitely a lot of cool stuff in the 90s, besides what was on the radio and got huge, like Smashing Pumpkins. I did show that, but there was stuff underneath that didn't make it to the radio, the real alternative stuff, I guess you could say. But alright, I'm enjoying watching all the videos, and got a couple more Chris's to watch on the stuff he's showing from the 90s, which I'm enjoying. So Jeff, I hope I showed a couple things that look halfway interesting to you and you might try it and check out. Thanks for watching.